So first of all, gentlemen, thank you for coming to our session about practical attacks against mobile device management solutions. My name is Michael. Daniel is over there, and we are from Cool Mobile Security. So I'll let first Daniel.
Sorry?
Yeah, this doesn't work, so just skip the slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here. Now it should work. Just move the mouse back. No? All right, forget it.
Okay.
Try
So,
to maybe just scroll in.
Yeah, I'll let Daniel present himself first.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Daniel Brodie. I've been a security researcher for almost a decade in the PC world, Windows, Linux, OS X, and also recently came into the mobile world, Android, iOS. I've also done quite a bit of low-level OS research. I recently joined Cool Mobile Security as a researcher, where I'm developing a dynamic analysis and virtual execution framework for analyzing malicious behavior in mobile applications, including spy phones and malware.
Right. My name is Michael Shaulov. I'm doing mobile security research for the last 12 years, starting from mobile baseband and protocols. And I've started my research with feature phones, those old Nokia 5110 phones, and until lately, which I'm dealing mostly with smartphones. My last position was as a research team leader in NICE Systems, and currently I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cool Mobile Security, where we develop a next-generation anti-malware solution for mobile devices. So just to go briefly on the agenda for our talk, basically we are going to give an introduction to mobile device management solution and secure containers. Then we will discuss about IT intrusion capabilities for mobile devices, what we call mobile rats or spy phones. And next we will present how those mobile rats can penetrate through the mobile device management security mechanisms and get access into the secure containers that are part of the mobile device management solution. So let's discuss what are MDMs and secure containers. As we all know, most of the enterprise communication today is being done over mobile devices. And more and more information leaves the firewalls of the enterprise, the perimeter, and moves into those devices that employees are bringing from home. So first we have our emails being placed on devices, calendars, and slowly we start to receive more and more applications like CRM, and documents, and etc. So in order to somehow control this phenomenon, IT managers are using MDM solutions to either lock down or to provide some kind of security around employees' mobile devices and to allow secure access into the enterprise and to pull securely enterprise content. But initially, as their name suggests, mobile device management solutions are mostly policy and configuration tools. They were designed to control the device and to lock it down. And the offering of providing security in those tools is something which we usually attribute to the fact that they can sometimes split between the corporate and the personal data on the device and to partition it into two different parts on the device. This is usually called a secure container, or sometimes it's called also multi-persona. And there are quite a lot of solutions today that we are seeing that are emerging and providing this type of functionality. So just to put some numbers into how many enterprises, organizations are going to use those capabilities, this is a quote from Gartner, that in the next 5 years, about 65% of the enterprises will use mobile device management as their primary tool for securing mobile devices. So that's going to be somewhat like an industry standard. And then we should start to review the key capabilities of MDMs. So what MDMs usually provide is around those bullets, software management, which means that you can whitelist or blacklist applications on the device. You can push application to user devices. You can control on the network service, which means that you can configure remotely, for example, the email access on the device to your enterprise. or VPNs. You can control the hardware. You can, for example, lock down the camera or disable the camera when someone moves into the physical perimeter of the enterprise, into the headquarters. And last but not least, of course, all kind of security related capabilities. First one is, of course, the capability to remotely wipe the device, which is quite effective if an employee loses the device. Then capabilities like pin lock, you can enforce pin lock on the devices. And, of course, encryption, which means that they provide enforcement of encryption at rest. So all the device will probably be encrypted this way or another, depending on the operating system. So, and another two unique features that come along with MDMs is the ability to detect jailbreak or rooting on the device, and the secure containers. So all leading MDM solutions today provide this kind of functionality, the jailbreak detection and the secure container capability. And we have a list over here of the leading ones, Mobile Iron, AirWatch, Fiberlink, Zenprice, and Good Technologies. What is quite interesting about Good Technologies is that they were the ones that really introduced secure containers. And basically, their initial offering was some kind of application where you are able to pull emails, calendars, and etc. to the mobile device and to put it in some kind of a secure container. So let's just elaborate a bit more on the technology which is behind the secure containers and how they really work. So first of all, we need to understand that the secure container is primarily a normal application, a normal app that is being deployed on the device, and initially it provides two functionalities. One is to secure the communication between the enterprise and the mobile device over either SSL or VPN, so no one can eavesdrop or do some kind of a man-in-the-middle attack between when the enterprise information, the emails, the calendars, the documents are being pulled to the device. And the second thing is that they have their own secure storage within the environment of that application. So all the information that is being pulled from the perimeter to the mobile device is being encrypted to the storage. But the really important part in this slide is the yellow part, which is the application sandbox. So the way that MDM, a secure container solution, protect themselves and isolate themselves from the other processes that are running on the mobile device is by using the standard sandbox capabilities of the operating system, which means the sandbox environment on Android or the sandbox environment on iOS. And that's what really protects those applications from being attacked by other applications that reside on the operating system. So from this point on, I will pass speaking to Daniel.
Thank you, Michael. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. So, as Michael mentioned, let's try that. As Michael mentioned, can I have the mouse?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. As Michael mentioned, secure containers try to protect the enterprise corporate data from malicious applications such as malware or spy phones. Now, when we talk about spy phones, we mean RATs or remote access tools available for the mobile environment. And we need to separate between the mass-oriented, the consumer generic malware, which we're seeing now in the market, the repackaged Angry Bird applications, which are on all kinds of third market Chinese shady websites, and they very financially motivated tools, basically doing things like premium SMS. And also, we've even seen recently botnets for SMS spamming and things of the sort. And these tools are, because they're so targeted at the mass market, at the average Joe, they are very, very low complexity, except for their maybe hiding part or things of the sort, but they generally very simple capabilities. And at the end of the day, the business impact of these tools is very minimal. If you're an organization, you have a few people in your organization who have a premium SMS malware installed on their phone, it doesn't really affect your business as much. End of the day, you don't really care too much about that. If you're talking about the targeted, the spy phone tools available in the market right now, these targets, unlike the mass, which as many people as they can attack is the better, here a specific person is targeted for a specific piece of information. The success rate is about attacking that one person and getting that one piece of information from his mobile device. Whether it's a personal piece of information, or it's an organization or enterprise piece of information, and cyber-espionage and things of the sort. Now, these tools have to have much more capabilities. They have to have usually communicate through some kind of CNC server and things of the sort. But the business impact of these are much greater than the generic tools, because they are targeting the specific information which should be important to you and should be protected by you. So why is the mobile platform so interesting for these rats or spy phones? Well, it's kind of obvious. I mean, these little devices are the nexus of all our information, whether it's personal emails, corporate emails, your contact lists, your messaging, and things of the sort. Also, personal corporate information, documents, and other such things like Dropbox. And in addition, they also follow us everywhere, which means they're very, very accessible, unlike a corporate desktop which sits in the office all day. These things are usually carried with us outside wherever we go, and they're very accessible. And this also leads up to the third part. Not only are they very accessible, they're also the perfect spy hardware. You could not ask for a better spying tool being on you 24/7, being able to report on the always connected internet, your location, and having a microphone and having a camera. Now, the spy phone capabilities usually available on the market right now are usually pretty generic things considering what you can do. It's eavesdropping on calls, doing surround recordings. So, for example, if a person is in a meeting, being able to track location, snooping on corporate emails or personal emails and application data, and also extracting confidential information, like, for example, passwords in certain applications, and sometimes even being able to access the private lands of certain corporations through VPNs configured on the device. Now, there's a wide spectrum of spy phones available on the market today, whether it's those targeting government-approved agencies or by government-approved contractors or things of the sort, or whether it's those that are targeting the average Joe, so you can spy on his spouse or his child or his cat if that's what he's into. And there really are available out there in the market right now. For example, on the high end of the spectrum, things like FinSpy, which was I think it was upwards of 300,000 euros, done by Gamma Group, a German company, and was founded by Bahrain on a few activist phones. You have DaVinci RCS, which was also detected by, I believe, Dr. Webb, the Russian security group. Lucky Cat.
Italian.
Italian?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Lucky Cat, which had a mobile agent on the servers on the servers that were exposed, and a few others also available on the market. And if you're going to the low end, you have things which are as cheap as $4.99 a month. This is very cheap. They're available out there. Practically every mobile environment supports them, whether it's iOS, whether it's Android, or even the not-so-populars like BlackBerry, Windows Phone, Windows Mobile, or even Symbian. And they're very professional. They have a 24-hour hotline, some of them, or an emailing service which you can get information from, and very easy, very supported. And they're very, also, like I said, very simple to use, so simple even your mother could use it, though he'd probably ask who she's using it on. And they're available at any reseller next to you. If you go to a cell phone store, like we went to a cell phone store by us, and and the seller was very nice. He explained to us the different pros and cons, the different options available on the market today, and even explained how he can set up iCloud sync on his girlfriend's iPhone, and that's how we spied on her and got all her personal images to make sure she's okay. I mean, this is very common knowledge. The average person on the street can use these tools, and de facto they do use these tools. Now, the difference between this spectrum is why the difference in price is usually the infection vector, the way the spy phone is installed on the device. The high-end ones obviously usually use 0 days and require minimal interaction from the targeted individual, whereas the cheaper ones usually use well-known vulnerabilities or require some kind of social engineering, or usually also require physical access to the device to make the initial installation. Now, here's an example from one of the common ones called Phone Sheriff. You can see you have very nice graphs explaining the texting, and you have the numbers on the bottom, and or the call history, and even even very easy to use location tracking. This is from one of the common ones, spy phone tools available on the market now. Now, to try and see how common these tools actually are and how much we're actually doing a little bit maybe of fear-mongering here. So we went to we partnered with a number of worldwide cellular network operators to try and see on their customers, on some of their subscribers, how common these tools were on them. And we saw, when we sampled 250,000 subscribers, we saw in two separate sampling occasions, the first one in March 2012, we saw there was 1 in 3,000 devices which had a spy phone, or at least a well-known spy phone that we know of, and tool installed on their device. In October, we saw 1 in 1,000 devices. This is a very alarming number. This is a huge number. When you're considering this is not mass-targeted malware. This isn't something that's spreading in the wild using some vulnerability or something. This is every single one of these users which has a spy phone installed on his device is targeted by somebody else for that information on their phone. Maybe there's probably a few kids or something like that, but generally you're talking about people here who's having their personal information looked at by other people. This should be a very, very worrying number. Now, another interesting fact that we got from these sampling occasions was, if you see, the iOS platform was featured very heavily in the spy phones installed. From what we saw, about 52% of the spy phones were on iOS phones. And this is according to the iOS market share. Android usually tends to come out a bit ahead with all their generic Android devices. And this is also a pretty worrying number, considering that a lot of enterprises, we even heard about this today, about a lot of organizations that are standardizing on iOS as their secure platform. This doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be secure against these targeted attacks. True, you're going to be it may be more helpful against these generic malware and things of the sort, but against targeted spying tools, iOS is at least as popular as Android, if not more so. But it's fine, right? It's okay. So what if I have a spy phone in my organization? I have a secure container. It protects our corporate data. Nothing to worry about, right? Well, let's recap what Michael said earlier regarding the capabilities that these secure containers try to provide.
Yeah. So
secure containers, they try to detect jailbreaking of the device, and they also try to prevent malicious application installation on the device. Additionally, they encrypt the data to try to prevent other people from accessing it. And lastly, they're dependent, this is very important, they're dependent on the OS-provided sandbox. So, if you look at their detection mechanisms, we did a little bit of looking around in some of the common ones available, and we pretty much saw that most of these tools are tools available on the internet for many of the MDM solutions that allow them to bypass their detection mechanism. They're usually dependent on very rudimentary checks based on if Cydia is installed on iOS or whether SU is installed on Android. And these checks are obviously easily bypassed. We've seen spy phones in the market right now that what they do is they use a jailbreak to jailbreak the iPhone, they install their spy phone, and then they remove any hint or trace of Cydia. They leave obviously the well-known vulnerabilities and that was used by the jailbreak, but they leave those behind, but any other UI element that you see is removed. So basically, if you're looking at the phone specifically, you're not going to see that anything is jailbroken. Now, there are a few other tools that are the more fancy ones do use. One of them is usually checking if signed code is allowed to run, or using if you can fork or things of the sort. Another one is looking at a specific hint in the linker. For those who might know some of the technical details. But again, these things are very specific tricks. They are, second you target those specific tricks with a little bit of a technical know-how, there's already a lot of tools available like XCon which can bypass some of these tricks. And it's just a specific handling of specific use cases. You're not going to have something which is going to be generic. And that's the main issue here. You cannot detect exploitation. If you have a Galaxy S3 device with an open XNOS vulnerability, any MDM or security solution on the device is not going to be able to detect if somebody is using the XNOS vulnerability with his own custom use case, with his own custom shellcode or payload. You will not be able to detect that. So it doesn't help that they can detect your jailbreak or rooting, because they're not going to be able to detect the actual vulnerability being used. Now, they also try to prevent malicious application installation. On Android, this is usually targeted against more mass malware stuff. Like we said earlier, that those cheap Angry Bird repackagings available in Chinese markets, you try to prevent the third-party markets from being installed, or third-party APKs from being installed on the device. And this helps you to try and limit the spread of malware inside your organization. But this cannot help to protect against targeted attacks, against a specific individual doing specific tools for your organization. This has been bypassed on Android from the previous Black Hat presentation, and the previous year, I think, there was a demonstration where somebody put an innocent-looking application on the Play Store and it became malicious later on. And also on iPhone, Stefan Esther did this a while ago. If you're having a tool and you're doing some kind of more advanced tooling available, some kind of tool which downloads a malicious bytecode later on to continue the work, then you're going to be able to bypass most of these restrictions. Now, okay.
Sure. We will show you now a demonstration on Android device. Basically, as I stated before, the most advanced currently secure container solution, or MDM, which has a secure container, is Good Technologies. What we are going to show here is how it is possible to exploit and penetrate into this secure container. Although we are going to show it on Good Technologies, this one will work for any secure container from any vendor. So don't think that they are not doing a good job. They are doing a better job probably than the other ones. So I'll just let Daniel to set up the demo.
Just a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here, as you can see here, a Galaxy S3 device was still open XNOS vulnerability. Now, for those who aren't aware, there was an XNOS vulnerability. Was a vulnerability that was found in Galaxy S2 and Galaxy S3 devices using the XNOS chipset that allowed you to gain root privileges on the device. This was released in December, and it took Samsung a little while before they actually released their fixes for all the different versions available on their phone. And again, it took a little bit more while till the actual cellular network providers trickled down the fixes down to their customers. So, like I said, Galaxy S3 was an open XNOS vulnerability, and as you can see, it has the Good for Enterprise solution installed for secure containing. Now, let's just show you it for a second. As you can see, you have emails on the bottom. You can see you have the calendaring and the contact management and everything of the sort. Now, specifically, we had to shorten the demonstration a little bit, but basically you have here an application installed using spear phishing, for example, or something of the sort. Very innocent-looking game called Tilt Maze. Pretty hard to play with this refresh rate, but you get the idea. And even though this application, after the user plays this innocent-looking game, we have a service, malicious service that continues running in the background. And when the user opens Good, and we probably has only one email that had issues with Good for Enterprise working. So after the user opens the emails, he opens the email. Now, as Michael said earlier, this is not nothing specific here for Good for Enterprise. This is not some kind of vulnerability or anything of the sort. This is a very generic way to, come on. Yeah, here we go. Okay. And as you can see, our email, which was supposed to be secured, encrypted by Good for Enterprise, and protected by their secure container solution, is now on our command and control server. This was sent home, sent outside through a service, where we have a service sitting on the Good for Enterprise, which pulls out the email and sends it to us in our command and control server. Right now, it's all running on the laptop to not make issues with the Wi-Fi. But okay, so like we said, so how would such a thing work inside your network, against your current network organization? Well, Installing the malicious application, like we said, can be done through a number of methods. The first one is through a innocent-looking application in the market, and then using a two-stage to download the malicious part later on. And then you can get the user to install the malicious part through spear phishing. Sorry. Additionally, physical access would also work great. Once you have physical access to the device, you would be able to install the application. Now, the privilege escalation, like I said, we use the XNOS vulnerability to allow us to get the root needed on the device. We then use it to create a SUID binary on the phone. Now, we put the SUID binary in a folder with only execute permissions without read or write. This means that this allows to only access files from the folder and not able to see what files are listed in the folder. This allows it to be undetected by most of the generic rooting detection mechanisms available on the Android, and it allows us to basically bypass the detection mechanism. Now, then the only thing we need to do is we need to listen for the ADB logcat, for the logs available on Android, to see when an email is being read. You see, Good for Enterprise is very considerate. Whenever an email is being read, they log a message to the ADB logcat, which allows us to know that an email right now is sitting in memory unencrypted. For ICS, we needed root because they hardened the permissions on that, whereas for the Gingerbread and earlier, you can also, just getting the correct permission will allow you to get the logs for all the applications. Then the only thing we need to do is we need to access the heap for Good for Enterprise. This is done by accessing the proc maps or proc mem file, and then we just need to parse their structure, the memory structure for where the email is found. We extract it out, and the only thing we need to do then is just to send it home to our command and control server. Because like we said, the Good for Enterprise is dependent on the OS sandbox to come and protect its memory, to come and protect its running environment. The minute that is compromised, we can access the memory, and when the email is sitting unencrypted in memory, we just have to pull it out, and we can do whatever we want with it. We can access it however we want. Here's, for example, some of our code that does searching and extraction of the email. Now for iOS, just a second. Oddly enough, this should be easier. Okay, here we go. Similar story with iOS. As you can see, standard iOS device having Good for Enterprise installed on it. And this time, as you can see, we're starting the Good for Enterprise solution. Now, somebody happened to have a little bit more emails available. And as you can see, we're opening one of the very important financial emails here. Very important email. And as we open it, you can see on the right, we have the email sent home to us. Again, secure container solution of Good for Enterprise, which is supposed to encrypt the email, but cannot protect from actually reading out the email. Let's do another one. I don't know. Yeah, economic bomb or whatever. No, I don't know. It's not an email. Here, board meeting. Yeah. Very important email. It's the third one just for, good admin enterprise setup. So you know email is safe, even your PIN. Well, we probably shouldn't have had this one. Don't write that PIN down. As we said, it's very important to reiterate this point that Michael said earlier. This is not an attack specific against Good for Enterprise. This is a generic reading content from an application where it can protect itself from a vulnerable host operating system. This is nothing specific against good. We like them. We don't hate them in any way. Now, for iOS, obviously, the much more difficult part is how to get the malicious application installed on the iOS to begin with. And you probably are going to have to jailbreak the device. Now, let's start with the second point first. We are already seeing spy phones on the market right now, which I said this earlier. I'm just going to repeat this for a second. Already seeing spy phones on the market right now where you connect your device, it does a whole jailbreaking procedure, and then it hides the jailbreaking as much as possible. Some do it better, some do it worse. And these are solutions available on the market already, which are actually pretty good. I mean, we've actually had a few devices in the office where we're pretty sure we're unjailbroken, only afterwards we realized that they were actually jailbroken. They do a pretty good job of it.
We were trying to jailbreak them after it was already jailbroken.
Yeah. And but you don't have to. You can actually remove the jailbreak. We couldn't do here the presentation of this because of you basically won't be able to see it because of the VNC client. But if you sign the code using the enterprise or a developer certificate or any one of the other similar solutions, you can have code living on the device which is signed by you, which without the jailbreak. You can remove the jailbreak, and then you can still have the code living there. This was also recently done outside. I think it was already closed. They had illegal games for iOS, pirated games done for a non-jailbroken device by doing them with the OTA UUID for the developers trick thing, and that allowed them to basically push to people pirated games. I think it cost like $100 for whatever. Doesn't matter. So this is already also something that's already being done outside. It isn't anything crazy. It isn't anything new. Now, another third solution, which is to repackage the original application. If you're going to be targeting a specific application, you can basically take it and repackage it so that you can have your malicious code as part of the original application. So basically, once we have our malicious dynamic library and we load it into memory, and we'll go into that in a minute, then we can hook the application using standard Objective-C hooking mechanisms. Once we do that, the only thing we need to do is get notified when an email is being read, when it's being displayed on the UI. We have to pull the email out of the UI, and then we just have to send it home. And we do this for every email that's read, as they're being read. Now, there's a number of ways of loading a dynamic library into memory in iOS. You have the DILD insert libraries, which is an environment variable, which is used to preload a dynamic library on the device, similar to LD preload on Linux. This was very common on previous iOS versions, and the later iOS versions it became a little bit more difficult, but it's still possible. The mobile substrate uses this mechanism for its hooking mechanism, the way if anybody here uses a jailbroken iPhone. And another possibility is to do editing of the macho object, the binary file itself, where you can edit the import table and basically have it pull in your device. This isn't part of the standard binary signing on iOS because it only signs the code part, but doesn't matter. There's a number of tools that do the work for you. There's not too much research really required here. There's available scripts on the market that do the work for you. And then the way that we do the hooking is we use the Objective-C's method of doing the hooking, which allows us to, at runtime, dynamically modify Objective-C methods and have it point to us instead of the original methods. Again, this is used heavily by mobile substrate. This means that we do not actually have to change the binary or the bytecode of the application. The only thing we need to do is tell it which function we want to attach to, and then we get called up whenever that function gets called, without having to, like I said, modify the binary in any significant way. Here's, for example, how we did it for good, which is we have a method called WebViewDidFinishLoad, which is called when the email is loaded into the UI. We save the original message using the method set implementation. And once it's called, we just call the original one, and before we call the original one, we pull out the email from the UI, and then we send it home. And then we call the original one, and this allows us to basically stand in the middle of the hooking mechanisms for iOS. Now, what we need to remember here is that the secure containers are dependent heavily on the host-provided the host-provided sandbox. That wasn't smart. Sorry. So, if the host mobile OS is compromised, that does mean that your secure container will not be able to protect itself from anything going on from the outside. So if the host operating system is uncompromised, the secure container doesn't really provide much, does it? Because the mobile OS provided sandboxing feature already protects it and does all the work needed for protecting the corporate data. But if the host system is compromised, which is not that far-fetched considering that practically almost every device in the market nowadays does have a jailbreaking or rooting mechanism out there available, then what does a secure container actually provide? The only thing it can't actually protect its data. It can't actually protect its memory from being read or anything of the sort. This isn't anything new. We've been through this before. In the PC world, it's pretty much been standard procedure that every time some solution try to come and protect its data from malicious people interested in the host operating system, it failed. I mean, we see this with DRM and other similar solutions. Okay.
Right. So, just to summarize, we all know that the infection is in a way inevitable, and eventually, although we don't see a lot of attacks on mobile platforms today, of course not when we compare it to our desktops or our servers, but we do see an escalation also over there. We need to understand that MDMs will not be able to protect us or sustain those attacks. And the real interesting part is like what are they are good for, and what benefit do they bring to the users. So I think the best part of what they are doing is the capability to really separate between the personal and business data in a way that they allow you to do selective wipe, which means that if someone loses the device, or at least like an employee comes and say, yeah, I think I lost the device, you're able to wipe only the enterprise content, and this has very significant legal implications, which means that later on when the user will find the device, he will not blame you for wiping his kids' photos. And the next thing is, of course, to do a protection of DLP or DRM, which means that a user cannot just take an email without, of course, jailbreaking the device. He cannot just take an email and copy it to his Gmail, or he cannot take a document from that secure environment and put his in the Dropbox account. But that's basically as far as those solutions will be able to bring you in terms of security. So eventually, we should do understand that MDMs are not a security control as we are used to from our desktop or servers environment. They don't have any anti-malware or really significant anti-tampering capabilities. And we need to think for the future about what kind of layers do we need there? Because for sure we'll need some kind of a multi-layer approach of protecting those devices. We'll need some anti-malware or anti-intrusion capabilities. And like we do see today on the desktop and servers and our internal LAN, we will need something which is more behavioral, more heuristic, which is able to do a detection which is not bound to the operating system itself, maybe done somewhere at the network level, and of course, and eventually some kind of intrusion detection mechanisms that will prevent, or at least will be able to detect some of those attacks that are targeting enterprises. So that's about all. Thank you for joining us. Now we are open for questions. Oh, someone has a question? Yeah.
You were talking about the MDM solutions, but how about the virus solutions which can be installed on the spy part? Did you investigate on these solutions?
So yeah, right. An interesting aspect is of solution is antivirus solution for mobile devices. Basically, most of the traditional players from the desktop, like Kaspersky, McAfee, all those guys, like and also some other like Lookout, provide those capabilities. The problem with antiviruses for mobile devices is those solutions are also limited by the sandbox. So they don't have like full reach capabilities of providing some hooking into the kernel of the operating system. They cannot look on the system calls. They're only able, for example, to scan the applications that are currently installed on the device in a very, let's say, naive way, a static code analysis basically, and to do some signature-based detection on that.
There's one more point about that, is that we can't say details because we don't want to be sued, but there was quite a few spy phones that were detected by antivirus solutions, and then they sued them, and now they cannot detect them anymore because they are legitimate tools available for spying on your kids or spouses. So most antivirus solutions, from what we saw, do not detect any of the spy phones available, publicly available on the market. We're not talking about anything unknown. They do not detect them.
Some,
On the good for enterprise, did you have jailbreak compliance turned on with policy settings?
Yeah, so
For both iOS and
I mean, like on iOS, you're able to block it. For example, you can look on the web there is a tool called XCon.
it's no longer functional with the latest version.
Yeah, right. So, but I think they can improve it over there.
We had a demonstration, but we can't do it because we're using the VNC solution to be able to show you the phone. So we had to have it jailbroken standard ways anyway. But
My specific question was, did you have the compliance policy turned on to have jailbreak with good for enterprise on iOS?
so I'm saying right now we can't do that because then we can't show the demonstration.
I mean,
so in the previous version we had, and I guess like Michael said, there was how to bypass it. We haven't looked at the most recent version yet. But like I said, most of them usually work by looking at the linker settings and things of the sort. And while it requires specific patching on a specific version, it is usually bypassable. In worst case, like I said, you can always just repackage the application at the worst case scenario. But if you're coming up early enough, we haven't really seen any solution which is not bypassable.
And I think to elaborate a bit more on that topic, usually the jailbreak detection is being done when you activate the application. So if you are jailbreaking the device, install your so-called malware, and then you signing it, and then you uninstall the jailbreak, then good will never detect that that the device was compromised. There was another question?
Well, we're not doing anything at the linker. The only thing we're trying to we're only using the linker to load our dynamic library. We're doing the hooking at the Objective-C layer, and we haven't seen any. We have seen people using the linker trick to try and detect if you have a malicious BLA loaded, like was mentioned. But the actual hooking mechanisms we have yet. I mean, if you know of one who knows how to check for the specific Objective-C style message hooking, we haven't seen anyone doing any of that. But like I said, the linker-specific thing, there are some available tools out there to bypass it. We've also played around with it and probably seen how it's possible to bypass it. We just didn't get into it here. But it's a worst-case scenario. If, for example, some kind of a bulletproof method is found, the only thing you have to do is just repackage the application if you're going to target a specific application.
Yeah.
So the question in the back? With your own. And again, there's tools available that there's certain things that you can change, but these things are very dynamic. They're very changing by versions. There are certain versions where you could change certain p-lists to allow you to load your code or things of the sort without actually having to change the application's signature. But I believe they closed off most of these things in iOS 6. We just haven't had a chance. I mean, we're a security company, so we haven't had a chance to dive too deep in the iOS 6 and see the correct way of doing it nowadays, but I know in previous versions it was possible to actually have your code loaded in an application without hurting the signature by changing the plist, like I said. But for newer versions, I believe this doesn't work anymore. But it's just time until the community finds different ways, or hackers or whatever find different ways of doing this without.
Any more questions? Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.